There's something that I came across, and I was sharing with the group of the coaches last week about the nature of space and time. Newton's laws of cause and effect. Something must happen for something else to be the result of. I'm sure you guys know that. We're not going into the third law of thermodynamics, keeping it simple. Cause and action, cause and reaction. So something must have happened for something to happen. Except when it came to the quantum world and Newtonian law was getting thrown out because people didn't, they're like, but how could how could the universe be, all these stars in the sky be kept up when there's actually nothing behind that? Like there was no, if you go back to cause and effect, finally you'll be like, well, what was the cause of the Big Bang? And you run out of options. Either way, the universe, if you apply cause and effect, then the law of attraction can't work, right? Because why can't it work? Because you have action, reaction. If I put money into a bank account, then I will have a savings deposit and then I'll make money. If I take care of if I do 10 push-ups a day, then at the end of it, I'll be healthy, right? Or if you look on the negative side, if I spend all my money today, I'm going to be broke and I won't get any more money. Or if I lose my job, then I'll be out on the streets. That's your conventional thinking. Like if I do, and it's very fear-based, right? If I make one wrong move, I'm finished, which is very destructive, right? Are you guys getting that? That's cause and effect, right? You get that. There's another exploration that I've been exploring for a while, and many of you know about it, sacred geometry. Sacred geometry are these patterns that occur in nature, right? So you see at the top of your head as an example, you see as a child the spiral pattern. You see the universe, the Milky Way, it's got a spiral pattern. You see in nature these Fibonacci sequences where Fibonacci is not just in nature, it's everywhere, but there is a pattern that is being formed that people like Pythagoras and people with great insight, even people like Tesla, saw that things were not going linearly or sequentially. It wasn't 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There was this, 1, 1, 3, 5, 8, 13, the Fibonacci patterns. And everything in nature seems to be following these patterns, number one. Number two is that self-similar. In other words, nature is self-similar. Nature goes to where it finds already what's there. Nature abhors a vacuum. These are all things that not scientists, but people of vision have been observing how the universe works without coming with their own baggage. They said, oh, the moon's rising at this time and it's setting at that time. There seems to be a pattern. And so what people discovered that were of deep insight was self-similar patterns. In other words, if your brain is not a linear structure, it doesn't go, you say 1 plus 1, so you're thinking it's saying 1 plus 1, 2, so it's linear. It does not process like that. If you're thinking about something and you say, what will I have for dinner? Do you then go, well, parsley, meat, chicken, or whatever it is? Why is it that your brain now is thinking about what you're going to do next weekend? Or why you don't like your husband anymore? Or why your child's giving you a hard time? Why is it jumping all over the place? What's this random nature? Like, first you're lying in bed trying to fall asleep and all of a sudden you're thinking about your ex, right? And you're like, why is this coming up now at this time of the night? Can't you stop thinking? The brain is a quantum machine. It processes and it looks at the world in a quantum way. If you look at how we see reality in a very limited way, in a Newtonian physics way, but our brains and our bodies are quantum. Quantum meaning that they follow the sacred geometry. Look at the double helix of the DNA strand. Look at, there's thousands of stuff, right? You can look at music as well. You can look at 532. Ronald, this would all be right up your alley. So let's go on to the law of attraction and self-similar patterns. Nature does not like a vacuum. Nature likes to put something there all the time. Why this applies is that if you think you're going to run out of supplies, run out of money, run out of love, run out of that, it's not how nature operates. So you're not going to run out based on observing nature. The other thing you'll observe is that nature where something is, another thing grows. Have you looked at mold? Right? There wasn't no mold there in the beginning, and then some mold grew, and then more mold grew. You find a bee being attracted to a flower, more being attracted there. There is this self-attraction, self-similar patterning that's happening. How does this apply? In short answer to what we're talking about here is that if you have a thought that is imbued or embodied with I am, not I want to be, I am successful. That one thought implanted a seed. Then in the day you say, and I follow this up with another technique called affirmations, and you say, why am I so successful? You see what I'm doing there? I'm asking a question of something that I don't believe I am. I'm starting to create a new discourse internally, thought level. So what I'm doing is simply planting seeds that will start growing flowers that will create trees. If you can get this in this concept, then the law of attraction, and there's not many people doing it like this, but I can guarantee you, based on my observation of nature, this is how nature works. And it worked in my life and worked in many other people's lives as well. You plant a thought. If you guys seen Inception, the movie Inception, brilliant movie. You haven't seen it, you should. A dream within a dream within a dream. You plant a thought or a belief strong enough, you can't see it now, but you've already implanted a root growing. And it's only much later that you see it sprouting through the ground. So that means you plant a belief, I am very successful, if that is what you want. And you start watering that. What does it mean to water it? It means that by using self-talk and say, why am I so successful? How would a successful person walk, behave, and all the rest of it? The secret is in the feeling. Remember Neville Goddard's word. So then you become as if though you are that person all the time, not as the previous version. And you can't see the results in the known universe, because that's Newton's law, right? It's like, if you can't see it, it's not there. What happens if it's on its way? What happens if it wasn't, like Ronald said, your hand that hitting the balls on a snooker table, but that the balls had an intuitive knowledge. And scientists, not scientists, but people of perception and depth have been observing something that the ancients knew about, that everything's related to everything else. Even though it seems that's a cucumber and that's a banana, they come from a similar patterning. Even a human being to a fly. There's relations. Now when you look at the DNA level, they're finding we're not that much further away from that. But it goes well beyond that. In other words, plant a seed, water it with your thoughts and emotions, wait till it grows. And the moment you see the first sprouting, the seedling appearing from under the soil, you become overwhelmed and excited. At that stage, you become super committed to watering that flower, right? If you guys ever planted something in your backyard, planted the seed, and you're just watering, and there's no enthusiasm, right? You're like, I don't know if it's going to grow or not. As soon as you see that sprout, and you're like, oh, it works. Like there's something. Now every day you're like, sorry, I got to go water the flowers. Until it becomes your coriander. I remember I was doing that with the coriander in my garden. And next thing you know, I had like tons of coriander. I think you guys call it cilantro in the US. Is that? It's the same thing. So now, the secret is to keep watering it before you see it. This is where people lose hope. This is where people give up. It's because they can't see it, because their brains are old thinking. Not old, because the old people knew this. The very old people knew this. If you've ever been to a Chinese place or an Indian dealer or retailer, you go there and they'll say they want to close the first deal. If you go to a market in like a Chinese place or an Indian place or something, Rashad, you entered at the right time. I see you came back to join us. So they would close that first deal. Rashad, you agree? He goes to Turkey a lot, right? In Turkey, the first deal is really important. They need that first deal. Why is that? I remember going to a place and the Chinese guy was talking about something in the market, and I said, make it cheaper. He said, how much you want to pay? And I said, like $2. He's like, but it's $10, right? Russell Peters, your fellow Canadian, Denise, he's hilarious when he talks about the Chinese. He's really funny. So $2, right? So you go in there, he'll say, all right, done. I'll take $2. And you're like, wow, how did I get such a good deal? It's because you're the first customer. And then they put these little cats with the hand. Have you seen them in the little Chinese shops with the cats with the hand? Because it's good luck. It's creating energy. They know this. It's not stupid. There's so much wisdom in it. But us grown-up people, oh, well, I don't see it. There's no bacteria. There's no virus. There's no, you're positive. That means your life is over or whatever it is, right? It's not like that. Okay, the energy that you attract starts creating more of it. So the moment you my father taught me, the moment you put that first note in the till, more money is going to follow. You got to close that deal, whatever it takes. So even a guy, you walk in and you got a shirt that's 40 rand, you go, I'll sell it for 10 rand. Just get it in there. How does that apply to you in your life? Plant a seed of a thought, then keep watering it and keep sustaining it, right? And the more thoughts that you apply to that, the quickly it grows, the more seeds get planted, and the more quickly you realize your dream or what it is that you want to. And in the meantime, you've got to come up with positive reframing until you see the seed come out of the ground. Otherwise, you get disheartened. You do that very easily when you plant something in the backyard, but you guys don't do that, and we don't do that in our lives. When we plant a seed and it's been like 3 days or 5 days, you're like, oh, the seed hasn't come up yet. Oh, I'm sure if I keep on watering it, it's going to come up. We don't stress over it. We don't curse God. We don't swear at the neighbors because we still don't have that thing that we wanted, right? But when it's our personal life, this is not working. I'm just giving up, right? But you do that with the seed. You got to do that in your lives and say it's coming. Right? And if it doesn't come up, then what do you say? Just say the seed doesn't come up in the ground. What do you say? What's your usual dialogue when it comes up? Plant the seed, you're giving it all the water, all the nutrients are there, but it just doesn't come. So what do you say to that? The first step would be to diagnose the situation. You'd say something like, well, maybe it's not the right sunlight. Then you do what you're saying as the second part. Okay, let me change the sunlight, for instance. So we come up with very logical reasons. We don't stress over it. But when it comes to us, when it comes to relationship, health, there's a great energy that puts towards that stops it from happening. So you say, for instance, you say, well, I manifested that, I would have a gold pair of sneakers by the end of the month, and it hasn't appeared. And we get frustrated and we get angry and all the rest of it. You say, well, maybe it's just I need to change this and I need to change that and apply a different kind of formula. You keep on going. Or maybe it wasn't meant to be right now, but you don't give up. It's one of the things that us as humans, we very quickly give up and we're like, it's not meant for me. It doesn't happen for me. And that's when you need to go get proofs of it happening. By you look at YouTube videos. Lisanne, the lady that we mentioned on the call, what was her name? The one that's always talking about this? Abraham, sorry, I got it, yeah. Abraham Hicks, right? So she's wonderful, right? Or he's wonderful, it's wonderful. So I think they were ahead of the gender game there, right? Because they've been around from the 70s or something like that. And they just so they say this thing. They say, I don't know how, I don't know why, but everything seems to be working out in my favor. And so somebody comes up to you and say, but how can you just say that? Well, I don't know, but it just seems that everything seems to be working in my favor. Well, do you have any proof? No, I don't need any proof, but I just see it. I don't know how, and I don't know why. It's all just working out in my favor. You see, it's not logical, but it works, right? So then you ask them, how are you feeling? I feel amazing. Why do you feel amazing? Everything's just working out for me. Oh, but you didn't get your new shoes? Yeah, because I wasn't meant to. And because things are working out for me, I'll get it later. You see, you're just messing with your mind to live a more fruitful life, right? And what happens by that, and you've done the 21-day challenge, when you're using the right mantras and you're using the right affirmations, you actually start seeing it happening. So you're creating reality, and reality is creating you. You're participating, as John Wheeler says, in the universe. So you is this wonderful thing that says your job is to dress up and show up. And the universe take care of the rest. That's it exactly. Ronald says, oh, okay, well, I'm going to do this. Your job is not to go figure out the how. Your job is to implant the seed, I want this, and then tell the universe the feeling of what you want to create. Most of the times, thank you, Ronald, for sharing that. Most of the times, what stops us is self-sabotage, not feeling worthy. This is such a big thing. This is at the beginning of all of it. We want this thing, but we don't truly want it, right? Yeah, do you want to be rich? Yeah, but I don't like rich people. Do you want to be fit? Yeah, but it's overrated. Do you want to be on a holiday? I wouldn't mind it. Like, how much do you want it? We've lost that enthusiasm because we don't believe we're really worth it. Because upbringing, conditioning, environment, we didn't have those opportunities to be like, how can I ever get that? How can I ever do that? And that's why you see people from poor neighborhoods or limited resource availability end up where they end up. And then those rare few, you'd be like, oh yeah, he was in Harlem and now he's on the news because he broke free, from these things. But what about the rest of the people in Harlem? Why does he need to be an anomaly? Why is it that people in the Hamptons, using all American examples here, are generally successful? Right? He'd probably be on the news because he was a failure and he came from the Hamptons. So you can definitely tell the conditioning and the environment and how you're raised to feel affects you. So your job is more difficult then, right? You got to try harder. You got to put in more effort. Yes, you have to get beyond your rational mind. Why is that? Because your rational mind is linear. It thinks, your brain isn't, but your mind, how you see the world. We've been taught to see the world this way. It doesn't mean that's how the world is. So our rational mind, that from conditioning and from people like Newton and other people, by the way, Newton did amazing things. We wouldn't have been having this conversation if it wasn't for Newton. So let's not write him off as some kind of devil, not by any means. Of course, and if he was a real scientist, he would say, well, later on, I'm hoping that other people will improve on my theories and come up with new ones. So having said that, if we look at the world from this level that some scientists still today refuse to let go of, okay? If we move beyond that, then that's rational thinking. So in other words, well, I have to do that for that to happen. Now, non-rational thinking is that maybe if I just have the feeling and work towards that, can that somehow amplify the feeling of it happening? In other words, is it all about, you'll only get rich if you work hard. You'll only be successful if you work your ass off, right? Those are the old ways of thinking. Not old, but limited view of thinking. Or, you know what, you can never cure your illness. You're finished. Anissa, you mentioned about the thing on the group that I posted about Joe Dispenza, this woman that had a skin disease. She went to all the best clinics and therapists and couldn't cure it. She went into one of these meditations, deep meditations, where she believed so truly beyond the rational mind that she's cured, that she can cure, that she's a healer, right? Miraculous healings. You hear it all over the place. And a couple of days later, this skin disease that she had was overtaking her whole body is gone. Now, this is getting so exciting that some of the traditional thinkers are getting frightened by this because the evidence is getting pretty substantial. When you get out of your rational mind, psychedelics, Denise, you know what I'm talking about, right? When you start getting out of your rational, limited, conditioned mind, and you say, I can do anything I want to as a child. You mean I can do that? Yes, you can. And then you program your mind and you become that thought and you start manifesting that. I mean, there's so many examples. And, I had to go research that because I came from a logical, conditioned Newtonian mind. I went onto YouTube, saw things, and then I started seeing things in my life that was like, oh my God. Like I said, COVID was the best thing that ever happened to me. That was the best thing. We wouldn't be having this conversation. This is what I did in COVID. I went anti-logic. They said, well, how are you going to pay your bills in COVID? Where are you going to get clients? You can't be doing this now. Your whole business is face-to-face. Andrea, Anissa, you can relate to that as coaches as well. And I read this thing and it said, the only thing you can do during COVID is to give so much it hurts. Go give so much it hurts. And I said, this guy's so impractical, but I like him because everything rational doesn't make sense. He said, open your heart up and whatever you can give, go and give, right? And out of that came these group calls, came the 21-day challenge, and came tremendous success in my coaching, including the London trip, Artie, right? And Miriam, and Maria, and Caroline. So, all of these things happen and you guys are proof to that. It's all a miracle. Honestly, it's a miracle. Now, I can talk about my life, but if you look closely at your life, every part of your life has been an absolute miracle. And if you can't see that, then you're really looking from a conditioned, redundant point of view. Because Just your chances of being born is, I don't know, the statistics are like 1 is 600 million, right? Of that sperm, getting into that egg, and then you appearing out of that and you surviving that process. So you've been a miracle all along. And the more you amplify that feeling of wholeness, of oneness, of bliss, how many times have you sat there going, oh my God, my life is magnificent? Like, how could I ever? What most people do is they say, I don't deserve this. Very dangerous talk, by the way. I don't deserve such a good life. Don't talk like that. Okay? You do, because you are the universe. So then you say, I'm so grateful because I'm entitled to this, right? And you sit in that feeling, and they've measured it on the scanners now, with the brain scan. Your body, your brain becomes coherent. It starts firing. Everything just starts forming. Healing starts happening. You start feeling more clarity. You start focusing on what? Denise, you talk about Kundalini, right? When you open up the heart chakra, you start falling in love. You start feeling these moments of bliss. You're sitting, Denise, do you know what I'm talking about? So, when you are on a mushroom trip or an ayahuasca trip, or when you have a Kundalini awakening experience, or when you, in the Chinese philosophy as well, there is this alignment with the various centers, not just chakras. What's happening internally is the chakras. All these after near-death experiences, they all have something in common. These sacred patterns that you observe in these states, these colors, these shapes, everything that we're talking about, you will see. That is what I spoke about, what my great excitement and interest is, the nature of reality. So if I can, and you can deduce based on your observation, these amazing things without even you needing to take that. Of course, when you take them, for instance, The Doors of Perception, Aldous Huxley, right? Huxley, his works have been foundational, and he wrote this book that nobody likes to talk about as well, right? Which is these coming times of these dystopian times. What was it? Can't think of it right now, but A Brave New World. Brave New World. Spoke in detail about the technological revolution and how we're all going to become programs, right? And in that, he speaks about all these things. Either way, he ended up becoming one of the pioneers, and in fact, it was, I think, CIA or one of these American organizations that said they wanted to try LSD, and he volunteered to write a book, and Doors of Perception was written about that. All of these writers, poets, artists, musicians, right? Maria, we've been exploring a lot on these patterns, these frequencies. They all line up. And then if you look at Raymond Rife, who came up with the Rife machine, works of Tesla, right? There are frequencies in your body. And there's a frequency for cancer. And there's a frequency for healing. Apparently, he's been totally sidelined by medical, by New Age scientists, right? But apparently, there was not one of the ailments that he came in that he couldn't cure. He'd find the frequency for it, give the healing frequency for it, and it would be cured using this machine called the Rife machine, right? All this stuff out there that's taken me years to explore and got me wide-eyed, So I'm so lucky that I get to do this for a living, right? And you see how different schools, thoughts, traditions, breathing techniques, all align. Joe Dispenza uses something that Kundalini teaches as well, to moving the energy up the spine. And when it reaches that sacred chakra on the top and all of them open up, you get this awakening experience. So we see nature to have these self-similar repeating patterns, the holographic universe, which is a concept which is wonderful, that shows that what is contained in one molecule of water is contained across the entire spectrum of the universe. So every cell is a copy of everything else in the universe. We can't get our minds around it because we're thinking of a hard drive, right? Still today, they don't know where memories are stored. There's this incredible thing where you're sitting there, I wonder what I did last week. Where did you get that information from? Where is it? Because it's not in here. And what in you is accessing it to make those words come out? It's a pure miracle. People don't get it. Because on the hard disk, you go, okay, well, you type a binary code, it goes into a hard disk, magnetic strip reads out there, the head comes out, takes the information, sends it back, and then types out and goes, well, it's file A. But in this thing here, nobody knows. It's fascinating. So we will go on to the world that is not visible or not spoken about. and I'm excited to bring that to you in the future.